Madam Deputy Speaker. I would like to start by associating myself with the remarks of Mr. Speaker about how we should conduct ourselves in this place with kindness, compassion and respect, even when we disagree. And I would like to quote Jalaluddin Rumi, a Muslim Sufi philosopher, who said, and I quote, "Before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? And is it kind?" And I believe that if we all followed that principle, both here, in the other place, and in our country, we would be more united and more compassionate for each other. I would also like to join members across the House to pay tribute to the absolutely amazing speeches by my honourable friends, the member for Bradford West and the member for Harlow. They spoke generously about their constituencies, and I intend to do the same. Though as an independent member for Dewsbury and Batley, I do so without the burden of a whip. Having said that, Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm not sure my colleagues across the chamber feel particularly burdened by the whip at the moment either. The lack of whip behind me, though, is the furthest thing from a complaint. It is the explicit instruction of the people of Dewsbury and Batley that provided me in 2024 when they returned the first independent independent to Yorkshire in over a century. They doubled down on that message last Thursday, Madam Deputy Speaker, across 5 wards out of 6 I represent on the Kirklees Council. 11 out of 15 elected councillors are independents. They failed. This election and the people showed that voting for an independent is not a protest vote, but a real alternative to failed party politics. The two-party system is well and truly finished, and I will not mourn its demise if it means we get more legislators who pick constituents over their party whip or their rich and corporate donors. So I look forward. I will give way.
I'm grateful for the member giving way. Madam Deputy Speaker, I too am one of the first independent members of Parliament for Blackburn, and I'm proud to represent my constituents. People up and down this country are now speaking against the two-party system because they are fed up of being spoken for. They are fed up of being spoken at. It's time to listen to the people, hear them. And I often say this, Madam Deputy Speaker, my policy are the people of Blackburn, my whip are the people of Blackburn, and my boss are the people of Blackburn. Would you agree?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention, and I do believe that every single member in this House has a primary duty to their constituents, those that voted for them or those that didn't. Every single resident in their constituency has a right for their members to represent them without fear or favour. So I look forward to welcoming many more independent and independent-minded colleagues to this place in future. As for the gracious speech, Madam Deputy Speaker, there are measures that I welcome. The Hillsborough Law is long overdue. A statutory duty of candour and accountability will finally begin to address a culture of institutional defensiveness that has failed families for too long. There are also meaningful steps on economic security. The Small Business Protections Bill tackles late payments, a crisis costing the UK economy £11 billion annually and closing 38 businesses every day. That is a practical reform that will make a real difference. And the government is right to prioritise cyber resilience. 43% of UK businesses experienced a cyber attack last year, with the UK facing major attacks on average every week. This is a real and growing threat, and action is both welcome and necessary. The government likewise is correct to identify access to SEND provision as a key issue. Parents should not need to go through the lengthy, challenging and dispiriting process of obtaining an EHCP before their children can receive the support they need. However, the government's proposals need to be matched with a more comprehensive plan to address the teacher recruitment and retention crisis in order to ensure that classrooms receive the targeted interventions that they need. There are clearly measures here that move us in the right direction. Admittedly, they may be too little too late in some instances, but they are welcomed nonetheless. But I cannot ignore the measures included in this speech that I vehemently oppose. Words don't put a roof over people's heads. Words don't put food on people's tables. Words don't heat homes. Words don't make work pay. Words don't end the cost of living crisis. This is affecting the majority of the people in our country, and the government's actions do not address the acute nature of this crisis for many people in our constituencies. The actions that the government has taken need to be challenged. The continued curtailment of protest rights undermines a fundamental democratic principle in the form of the right to dissent. If the government continues down this path, it will stand on the wrong side of history, and the UK will be listed with other authoritarian regimes. The Immigration and Asylum Bill, while framed as fair but firm, runs the risk of introducing a system that is anything but that. A system where rights are conditional, subject to contribution, narrowly defined by income. Retrospectively doubling the standard qualifying period for indefinite leave to remain from 5 to 10 years would leave an indelible stain on this government's legacy. The expansion of digital ID, while presented as a convenience, instead represents a wildly unpopular Orwellian shift in the relationship between citizen and state. It creates what Big Brother Watch rightly calls an intrusive system from cradle to grave that would be ripe for mass surveillance and more government control over people's lives. These proposals risk trading hard-won freedoms in the nebulous name of efficiency, and that is a trade this House must scrutinise and stop. And Madam Deputy Speaker, these principles must not stop at our borders. We cannot claim, as this government so often does, to defend the rule of law and human rights while failing to uphold these principles abroad. The UK must end weapons exports to Israel and to any other state suspected or shown to be violating international humanitarian law or accused of genocide before international courts. Our commitment to justice must be consistent, otherwise it loses all credibility. But perhaps the greatest weakness of this speech is not what it contains, but what it leaves out. There is no meaningful framework for AI safety, despite overwhelming evidence of the risks posed by this new technology, which is developing at an alarming rate. An IPPR report has stated that up to 8 million jobs could be lost due to AI disruption in the next 3 to 5 years. Already, AI-exposed firms are cutting entry-level roles and reshaping the labour market. Even more worryingly, many AI experts, such as Geoffrey Hinton and over 300 others, consider the risk of existential catastrophe as a consequence of loss of control scenarios to be plausible at best and likely at worst without adequate regulations and global collaborations. Our blueprint here should be the Montreal Protocol, a framework that helped pause and reverse the damage to the ozone layer from the use of CFCs. The world had decades to stop and reverse the harms from CFCs, but with AI, the disastrous consequences could be realized during this Parliament. The potential risk from unregulated AI could cause irreversible harm to humanity and our planet. It demands immediate and meaningful government action to prevent these harms before it's too late. The public is rightfully clear that it wants sustained, forceful action here, with a 2025 survey by the Ada Lovelace Institute and the Alan Turing Institute finding that 72% of the UK public reported that laws and regulations would increase their confidence in AI. Yet in today's gracious address, there was no plan for governance, safety, or accountability. Similarly, this speech offers no plan to hold social media companies to account, no meaningful framework for transparency, no clear standards for algorithmic responsibility, and no serious enforcement mechanism for those that flagrantly breach these rules. No ability to take action to ban addictive platforms or compel safety by design. So this is a programme of progress in parts, problems in principle, and profound omissions. It contains measures I welcome, proposals I must oppose, and omissions that I and others cannot ignore. It falls short of the radical action that this country needs and has been crying out for. It lacks urgency on material issues that affect people's daily lives. It avoids hard decisions to tackle vested interests. It fails to hold power and wealth to account. It fails also to clean up politics by banning dodgy donations and revolving doors. Madam Deputy Speaker, in concluding, the people of Dewsbury and Batley did not send me here to be loyal to a party. They sent me here to be loyal to them, to stay true to them. In this session, I will vote against inhumane, unjust, and unfair policies wherever they appear, defend our public services and the funding they need to thrive, give voice to my constituents of every faith or none, colour and creed, who refuse to look away from injustice abroad, and to fight for Dewsbury Sports Centre, Batley Baths, GP surgeries, local dentists, the bosses, the schools, and the charities and the communities that hold our towns together. Thank you.
Yeah.